Hello, folks. My name is Sarah Dexter. I use she, her pronouns. I work in the Office of Admissions and Recruitment, and I have a bunch of my wonderful colleagues here and current students who are going to join me today. As a note, the session is being recorded, and so future viewers, we're really excited that you can join us at a later time and learn more about our Master of Social Policy program. So I would love to start this session by my panelists introducing themselves. As I mentioned, my name is Sarah Dexter. I work in the Office of Admissions and Recruitment, and I use she, her pronouns. I will kick it over to Dan.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm Dan Ferris. I use he, him pronouns. I'm an assistant professor of practice and the assistant dean for policy initiatives at the Brown School. I also lead education and training initiatives at the Social Policy Institute at WashU. I'll kick it over to Elizabeth.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Fuchs. I use she, her pronouns. I am a field faculty member, and I help support you in your pursuit of internships. And so I'm the field faculty member who works with your internship program, and I teach social policy analysis and evaluation. Love policy. I'm so glad to get to know all of you, and thanks for being here.
I will go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Jenny. I am the assistant dean for field education and a teaching faculty member, and I work really closely with Elizabeth. Elizabeth is really the brains and the depth of experience around policy internship, but I am also here to support you in thinking about internship and field education.
We also have two students here today, so I would love if Nicholas and Alexi could introduce themselves as well.
Hey everyone, I'm Nicholas Asher. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm a Master of Social Work, Master of Social Policy, dual degree student, and I'm concentrating in mental health, and I'm excited to meet you all today.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexi. I use she, her pronouns. I am a second year MSW student and concentrating in domestic, social, and economic development, but have had really great experiences taking policy classes that cross over, and I'll be working in policy after graduation. So I'm excited to talk about it and maybe be recruited back for an MSP myself.
Awesome, thank you all so much. It's been a busy day, and I'm really excited that we can cap off the day with our MSP program overview. So we'll go ahead and dive in. Some folks may have attended previous sessions where we touched on our mission, but we find that it's really helpful to begin all of our program sessions really just focusing in on our mission, because that's really what guides the work that we do. So at the Brown School, our mission is to educate and prepare future social work and public health leaders in areas of policy, practice, and research. We do a lot of research at the Brown School, but we recognize that research for research's sake doesn't really matter. And so our second piece of our mission is to pioneer research and apply results to impact policy and practice locally, nationally, and internationally. We also recognize we don't work in a vacuum, and we can't do that, and we shouldn't do that. So the third piece of our mission is to collaborate with organizations to improve access to and quality of social services and to address social and economic justice. And so really briefly, these are some really high-level numbers of the Brown School. So as you're probably aware, the Brown School has 3 graduate programs. We have programs in social work, public health, and social policy. We have a 3-to-1 student-faculty ratio, so that means you have a ton of opportunities as students to engage with faculty members in the classroom, in research, in individual conversations. There's a lot of opportunities to be actual humans with faculty members. For folks interested in research, we have 15 affiliated research centers and 3 community-based research initiatives. So again, if research is your jam, there's a lot of opportunities in that. I actually come from a research background before I moved into admissions, so I have a very special place in my heart for the research that's being done here. As for student groups, again, tons of opportunities to get involved, over 17 plus student groups and leadership opportunities. If you're a student and you find that there's a gap or there's an area that you really want to work in or you want to build community in and we don't have it, there are opportunities for you to form your own student group as well. And then lastly, scholarship. I know finances are a huge piece for our students. And so 100% of our students who request merit-based scholarship do receive an award. If you have specific questions around funding and scholarship and finances, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, to admissions and recruitment, to financial services. We would love to connect with you and see what we can do to assist that process. So I'm gonna touch on curriculum, a bit of an overview, and then I'll pass it along to Dan and my other colleagues to get a little more in detail. But to start, our curriculum is designed to be different, and so what that means is our curriculum is really rooted in evidence-based practice. So not necessarily just talking about theory or theorizing, but applying that research and those evidence-based practices in the classroom, but also in your internship as well. We utilize an equity lens. And so our work is really grounded in driving equity, but health equity, social, racial, economic equity as well. We utilize an anti-oppression framework. And so we aim for our students to be in an environment where they can really learn and grow in an inclusive, empowering environment. And that also our work doesn't further oppress people who have historically been oppressed, underserved, or marginalized. As you've seen, we have multiple graduate programs housed in one school. And these programs have a lot of interconnection, a lot of overlap. And so we take a transdisciplinary approach to the work that we do here because we recognize we need complex collaborative efforts to tackle these really difficult issues that plague our current environment. And then lastly, our curriculum prepares our students for traditional and also emerging careers in the field of social policy, social work, and public health. Whew, that was a mouthful. I am going to stop talking and pass it over to my colleague Dan, who's going to dive into the curriculum in a little more detail.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Sarah. And indeed, social work, public health, and social policy is indeed a mouthful. But we're really excited that folks are interested in the intersections of all 3 of these fields. We often say that social workers and public health professionals are uniquely positioned to influence policy, and vice versa. Policy professionals, both emerging and current, could stand to gain from the fields of social work and public health, to be sure. So I'll be talking a little bit about the MSP program, giving some overview of the curriculum, the approach, and then with support from my great colleagues from the Office of Field Education, talking about internship as well. So on the next slide, we talk about core courses, electives, and intensives. And so the MSP program is an additional year of graduate study in addition to an MSW, an MPH, or another graduate degree previously completed in a related field. And so the core course foundations are in policy analysis and politics, statistics and analysis, economics, and management and leadership. Elizabeth had mentioned earlier in her introduction that she teaches a class, social policy analysis and eval, which is a foundation class in the policy analysis bucket. We also offer courses in impact assessment and benefit cost analysis, policy, power in the 3 branches of government, the economics of social welfare. So these are foundational to any policy degree. And at the Brown School, we're really driven towards social policy and thinking about how policy intersects with social welfare and social well-being. We offer over 40 electives that students can choose from, either specifically uniquely designed MSP classes or drawing from the great robust offerings in the social work public health programs that are policy connected, and even looking across campus. Some students have taken previously classes at the business school and at the law school that are in line with their academic and professional goals. What's unique and specific to the MSP program are our intensives. So we kick off the program with short courses. So typically in August and early in the fall semester for some skill, knowledge, and network building, some cohort building among our students. These classes are specifically designed by Brown School faculty and leading policy practitioners and researchers in the field. They change year to year, so they're timely and they're relevant. And they're based around both, what's happening in the broader world as well as expressed student interest. We're actually just wrapping up, our sequenced short course offerings for this year, where we offered a class in public economics and analysis for equity, a class in program and policy design using a gender equity lens, and then last but certainly not least, the arc of justice, looking at policy using a civil rights lens and historical framework. The overview and how that translates to your time in the program. The MSP is 31 additional credit hours in addition to your other graduate work. And so the short courses typically take place in August and into the early fall semester, making up 4 credits of the 31. Typically, students are taking then around 12 credits during the fall semester itself, oftentimes in the foundation areas, but students also take, are welcome to take an elective during that period as well. Rounding out in the spring. The spring is one of my favorite times of year for many reasons, one of which most of our students wind up doing what we shorthand call the DC course. It's an advocacy and policymaking in the legislative branch in the US. And so it takes place either in person or virtually now in DC over the course of the semester, where students have this incredible opportunity to learn from national leaders in policy across different areas of interest. And then the class culminates in going onto Capitol Hill, again, either in person or virtually, to advocate for an issue that they feel passionately about. So students are leaving the class and the program with that valuable experience. Last and certainly not least is the summer internship, which Sarah is very excited to get to as well, as am I. So as I hand things over to my colleagues, Jenny Harpering and Elizabeth Fuchs, I'll just offer that the internship is designed for students to apply their classroom-based knowledge and learning in a real-world policy environment. And I'll let Jenny and Elizabeth talk a little bit more about that now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm very excited to talk to you about your internship. Dan, you had mentioned something about being relevant and responding to the environment. And so one of the things I just want to mention is, I'm telling students all the time right now, with your internship, keep dreaming. What is it that you want to do? What was it that inspired you to want to go back to grad school to acquire a master in social policy? What were those skills that you were thinking about? And then how can those skills be found in the field and through this internship program? I don't have access to the, thank you. So field education. This is a unique opportunity to choose your own internship site, which is great because we provide lots of different opportunities for you to learn about sites through events, or we have sites specific to the program that you can learn about from a list of our policy specific partners. But you get to do this, dream on what your internship will look like. And then hopefully we will have something that aligns with those interests. The field faculty advisors, myself, Jenny Harpering, we are available to support you in your internship experience. What makes this unique is that you do get to explore and select your own site. We do support you though. We encourage you with lots of different tools and support you along that journey. We do want you to go ahead and attempt to secure that internship yourself. You will gain professional experience locally, nationally, or internationally, depending upon your interests. The MSP internship is 3 credit hours, so that totals 360 hours in the field. It is your summer. It is a summer after 9 months of coursework in a full-time setting. So what that translates into 36 hours each week for 10 weeks during the summer. So many different opportunities within the social policy internship. You can work at the local level. We've had students who have been working at local legislative offices in the Missouri State Capitol or federal offices. We had a student this summer who was working for a federal administrative office, policy think tanks, research centers, government agencies, and advocacy and community nonprofit organizations. There are many opportunities for you to acquire and to specifically focus in on those social policy skills and what that work looks like in the field. And I feel like this conversation starts now as you started to think about going back to school. What are those skills that you want to acquire? And we want to work with you on finding sites and working with the sites that we are partnered with to secure those internship opportunities for you.
All right. So continuing us on our overview of both the MSP program and how it relates to other facets of the Brown School. Thanks, Elizabeth, for the great overview of the summer internship. As we think about student support, the supports and resources that are available to MSP students are completely in alignment with the supports that are available to all students at the Brown School. So there's a 3-tiered advising approach. You've just heard from our field faculty, Elizabeth, in terms of the field education side of things. And so I'll work backwards on the slide. But so in addition to the field faculty, or in addition to field education, students have faculty advisors throughout their time at the Brown School who are able to connect with you on an academic and an emerging professional and leader in the field to connect with outside of the classroom opportunities, as well as thinking about, how you're successful in terms of the classroom experience that you're having. You also have an academic advisor who can ensure that you register for the classes that you need. They're very well versed on academic support resources, and this happens in a number of different models. So in addition to being assigned an advisor who in the MSP program, you have one advisor, one academic advisor for your time in the program. There are also different opportunities to just connect with a wide range of advisors at the school with things like advisor of the day and drop-in hours. So just to make sure that everyone's set up for success in terms of everything from their class selection to how Elizabeth was talking about the internship search process throughout the course of the year. So the eligibility criteria to apply to the MSP program. So again, just to oversimplify, the MSP is done in conjunction with additional graduate work. So we have a group of global partner universities where students are doing a degree in urban planning or social work or public health or sociology in a defined international partner. And these are listed on the MSP website. There's also prospective MSW and MSP or MPH MSP students. So these students are brand new to the Brown School and they're really interested in pairing or coupling an MSP, a social policy degree, as part of their experience at the school that they'll be leaving with. We also offer a paired degree or paired program applicant option. So the paired degree is where the social policy program is open to anyone with a graduate degree in a related field from a US accredited institution. So this is a new pathway, in the last couple of years, and we're really excited to continue to build on the opening of the program, drawing from a number of different disciplines and fields and experiences that people have had both academically and professionally. Last but certainly not least, our current Brown School students. So while many students are now opting to apply directly into the program as an incoming prospective student, it's also available to students to apply into the program in their first or second year, as I believe Alexi had mentioned earlier today. So thinking about just kind of the way to approach it, we encourage students, when they think that they're interested in a graduate degree, to apply and to come to an information session like today's to meet with faculty and current students, about their interests in policy. We've made the application as neutral as we can be to, in terms of when to apply. So current and prospective students aren't at an advantage over one another. But I'd also just very quickly offer in terms of the prospective side, we want to make these options and pathways open for students to meet them where they are. Some students come into the Brown School knowing that a policy career is what they're passionate about. Others come to the Brown School and then they meet those students who are already passionate about policy and decide that the MSP would help to further their academic and professional interests. So that's how we've approached our academic pipelines, and we're happy and thrilled to have students joining us from all of these sources. So your application itself, the Brown School offers a holistic review process. So of course, things like GPA and academic transcripts are considered, but we also take into significant consideration the application as a whole. So this is from your personal statement, your letters of reference and recommendation, and there's a set of questions that you can be thinking about as you're both looking at and completing an application, as well as you're progressing through the application process and graduate school decision more broadly. Around the things that we find that are key to success in graduate school and the Brown School. And then these translate really well into what we view as success in policy practice in the fields of social work, social policy, and public health in the future. So your next steps, you're here at an information session or watching the recording of it, at some time in the not too distant future. So the requirements of the application, as we mentioned, transcripts, a personal statement, comprehensive resume or CV, and a letter of recommendation. The priority deadlines are December 15th for early action. The only exception to that is if you're a current Brown School student and graduating in December, and hoping to start in the spring, then we'd have a little bit of a different timeline. So happy to talk to anybody who's interested in that pathway further. And then regular decision March 1st. And after March 1st, we continue accepting students on a rolling basis leading into the summer and fall. So we'll stop in terms of the formal presentation there. I know we've gotten a couple of questions already, and we'll continue the discussion as we go. Thanks so much for your time and attention, and really looking forward to hearing more from people about their interests and sharing our experiences with the MSP program and policy more broadly.
So I had a question for our student ambassadors, if that's all right. So Nicholas and Alexi, I was just curious if you could share a little bit about what drew you to pursuing policy courses, and Nicholas specifically the dual degree in MSW, MSP. I would love to hear from our attendees as well if y'all have specific questions. But I'm always curious to hear from current students what drew them to this work.
I can go first. So I've worked in the field as a social worker, and throughout my different experiences, I have become aware of just how systems can be oppressive to the populations that we serve. And specifically the populations I have experience with are people with a mental health diagnosis and people with a developmental disability. And just knowing that systems are in place that oppresses these populations inspired me to not only further my education with a social work degree, but also to pair it with a social policy degree.
Yeah, very similar to Nicholas. I did my undergrad practicum in a location that was very clinical, very hands-on. And in that, I was seeing these problems and realizing that if we took a step back, there were so many different forces at play. And looking at that, as well as some internships and some professional work on the communications side in an advocacy organization, gave me kind of a front row seat to what policy looked like on the state level. And that was all before coming to the Brown School. And I was like, oh, I kind of like this. And also at my undergrad, I got to do some policy work at the federal level. So I got to go advocate for different bills on Capitol Hill every year. And sort of the combination of all of that, when I got to the Brown School, I was like, hey, I've been doing these things. I don't know if I want to do it professionally, but I liked them as a temporary thing. And so I took one class and then it was like, oh, I like this too. So maybe I should take 5 more classes. And so that's sort of how I ended up doing policy and looking forward to doing it professionally after graduation as well.
I froze for a minute. We're back. Oh, technology is great.
Those are great answers. Thank you, Nicholas and Alexi, for sharing about your interests and what brings you to policy, both in terms of the MSP and, of course, thinking more broadly. I know we've had a couple of questions come through. I'm happy just to kind of to take the first one that I have here. So one of the first questions that came through was around careers, and I actually think when we talk about careers, there's a really nice tie-in with internship also. When we think about what do MSP internships look like, there's a really great translation and transition into what does a policy career look like. In a full-time internship environment after having completed significant policy coursework, our hope is that the work and the level of expectations, it's of course a learning experience, but that students are also able to contribute in the space. And so in the field of policy, it's very often presented as 3 different tracks or pathways. Many people go into advocacy and activism focused careers. A number of people go into the more kind of administrative or government or what's termed professional careers, although I wouldn't hesitate to call advocacy and activism professional either. And then also thinking about research and analysis. And so what do the careers look like and what do the internships look like? They look like stepping stones into those fields and areas and ways to be able to practice both within each of those, and then for many of our students looking across them. And so, of course, a student, the way that they approach their coursework, the way that they approach their internship might look different if they're, aspiring to a PhD in policy or related fields, or working for a think tank and running quantitative analysis. And for the student who is more interested in terms of community organizing and activism and advocacy, at a local, state, or federal level. And so thinking about, some of the places that our students have just wound up even recently in terms of their positions and careers, we have recent alumni right here in St. Louis and our public defender's office, working for the Scholarship Foundation, kind of at that intersection of practice, community, and policy work. Students working in local government agencies, and then on the research side, students who are, at university-based think tanks. We have a recent alum in the MSW, an MSP alum, who's with the Center for Research on Inclusion and Social Policy. We have an alum at UNICEF doing some really exciting policy work, specifically around poverty. And so, what exactly the pathway looks like for students in terms of career can actually be reflected really nicely in the courses that they choose, the internship that they pursue, the connections and the contacts that they build throughout their time at the school. Another question that had come through, actually previously ahead of the session, is if someone has a degree from another university, is there an opportunity for them to do a second degree in MSW, MSP? So yes, absolutely. So I think the distinction that I just offer for anyone who has, who's entering the program with another degree, if you have an undergraduate degree, your pathway to MSP would be a dual degree in MSW, MSP, or MPH, MSP. If you are joining the Brown School with a graduate degree in a related field from a US institution, you're welcome to apply and have, I think it's 12 credits carry over or apply from your previous completed graduate degree towards the MSP requirement. A great question in the chat about letters of recommendation. And then one for Alexi also. So I've been talking, I took the last two, so why don't I turn things over to Alexi? Do you feel that the MSW degree on its own was enough to provide you the background and skills you need to do policy work after graduation? And granted, your MSW is still in progress, but any thoughts you have about that? And then I'm happy, and others might also have some thoughts in terms of how to approach it.
Sure, yeah, I was typing out an answer, but this will definitely be a little bit easier. So that's a really good question and a hard question. Any graduate degree is, to an extent, I think, what you make of it. And I was really lucky to be able to specialize and tailor courses directly to what I wanted to do. But I also knew that I had a job. And so I'm going back to a job that I worked in before. And I had really great mentorship and training in that job that helped me refine policy skills I learned in the MSW program. I think the MSP, from what I hear, and Dan and others may be able to add to this, will give you some of those more tangible skills in a way that gives you a leg up on in entering the workforce. So my job, actually, to be totally transparent and honest, started in communications. It started out as a PR job and it evolved from there. So that was great for me. But if I was applying for a job that was a specific policy job, I would not have been able to compete, I don't think, with someone with an MSP from the Brown School, because of the nature of the MSP curriculum, how they really, really work with you on analysis, on some of those things like cost benefit analyses, which I took as an elective and is like one of the most amazing things I've learned at the Brown School. 10 out of 10 would recommend. But that's a really important skill for policy work, and something that I know in the MSP, cost benefit analyses, other sorts of analytics frameworks, writing and preparing policy briefs, and then presenting to legislators and what those looks like. That looks like some of those skills are present in the MSW curriculum if you tailor it correctly, but they're really emphasized in MSP, as well as the fact that that internship is invaluable. I don't know that you can replace internship activity and the connections you make there without that. So yes, and.
I can share my opinion on why I added the Master of Social Policy. So when I was looking into grad programs for social work, I came in with my BSW, so I knew I wanted to get my Master of Social Work. And I know social work is very person-oriented, but also at the same time, I know to be a policy expert, you need to have analytical skills. And when I looked at the Master of Social Policy curriculum, I just saw how analytical it is. And I felt like the person-centered perspective from the social work degree compared with the analytical skills from the social policy degree was a killer combination. So that's why I decided to go with both.
I'm loving the descriptions that both Alexi and Nicholas are offering. A leg up, a killer combination. It's really how we think about it and how we really intended and designed the program to operate and to be in benefit and of service to students who have a lot of passion and are looking to build additional skills, knowledge, and network to advance their academic and professional careers. And the program is flexible enough to meet people where they are. So some students enter with more policy background, more research experience, and some are completely new. And it's a newer experience. And so we have our courses designed in a way to set folks up for success, but also to recognize that, policy change happens outside of silos. And so what we're really hopeful to do with our program, both being embedded with social work and public health programs at a top school and university in the country and world, in addition to how we just approach our program more broadly, is not to replicate some of the siloing that prevents social change and policy change more broadly. So I heard some really great reflections in terms of specific classes, frameworks for thinking about the work. And I would just kind of offer for anyone who's thinking about the MSP to look at, what you would want to get out of your MSW, MPH, or what you would be previously bringing in from additional graduate coursework, and to really be specific and tangible, both to Alexi and Nicholas's points. in terms of what specific classes and what specific skills are you looking to get out of the degree, and how will those help to further your career paths in advocacy, policy administration, and of course the research and analysis lens. I'd also offer, I know as somebody who doesn't necessarily wake up thinking about quantitative analysis, that for me, it's something that I've built skills in so I can be a more efficient and effective consumer over it. But so just recognizing the importance of the classwork like benefit cost analysis, statistics, impact assessment, even if you're planning to be more on the advocacy side, I found very early in my career doing advocacy and community organizing that the research that we had available to us was oftentimes not meeting the needs of the campaigns that we were looking to advance. And so I've spent time in my both academic and professional career since then, supplementing and building on a lot of the same skills that now the MSP is offering to people. And so, to give the leg up or to have the killer combination. So sorry, I might trademark those both for Alexi and Nicholas for info sessions moving forward. Thanks for offering those. So we talked a little bit about the tangible skills, impact assessment, benefit cost analysis. Again, we have we'll be adding a course for next year that's being designed and led by policy leaders at the Brown School and our partners in public administration, public finance, and government budgeting. So again, I think about these courses and especially specifically using learning about these things using a social change and an equity lens, making the Brown School the place to learn about policy and policy practice. Because whether you want to work in policy research, administration, or advocacy, knowing how the wheels turn, how the proverbial sausage or tofu is made, and how to influence and affect that couldn't be more valuable and important, and for not just today's, but tomorrow's policy leaders and innovators. Thanks to our attendees in the chat for the great questions and the great feedback on the answers.
Yeah, it looks like Emma asked a great question. Do you mind if I if I read it to give you like a moment, but then let you answer it? Emma asked if it's common for applicants to have research or work experience prior to applying. Are there any particular elements or experiences within either of those positions that are strong points in an application? So sounding like what sort of experiences may be helpful to highlight, or are there common experiences folks have?
Yeah, I'll go first this time briefly, and then I'd be curious also if Alexi or Nicholas just wanted to share about their approach to applications to the Brown School, either for the social work program with interest in policy or the dual degree directly. Our students enter the MSP program with such a broad, diverse range of experiences, both academically, personally, and professionally. And so regardless of kind of where you're coming in, whether you're, a younger professional, emerging in your career, mid-career, or even later career, students, some are drawn to because they've had experience in policy and are looking to bolster with more tangible skills. Others, interest and passion is piqued. And so I would think about, regardless of which one of those two lenses that you're coming in from, or which one of those two experience sets you're coming in from, to really emphasize how the experiences that you've had are drawing you and bringing you to the program, and what specific experiences and opportunities you're looking to get from the program to then further the work that you're looking to do, not only at the Brown School in the program, but in the future in your career, academic and professional, looking forward. So I'll turn things over to Alexi and Nicholas if you wanted to talk a little bit about your applications to the school, which obviously were effective.
MSP. So I'm going to leave that specifically to Nicholas, but I will say as our cohort as a whole, you've probably heard us talk by now about our holistic review process, and I think that the admissions committee really does stick to that holistic review process. They really are looking for a story, and just in my group of friends in the program, you can really see those differences from people with 10 years of work experience who were working in the field and came back, people who were working in totally unrelated fields and were just really passionate about making a difference. And then people who came straight from undergrad and had no experience in anything at all except for, writing papers and doing undergrad, volunteering. So totally a wide range. And like Dan said, I think just emphasizing your strengths and what experiences you have had and why you're passionate about it will go a long way in your application.
In regards to my specific social policy application, I have had limited policy experience, but I shared about how my passion for policy stemmed from my work with individuals and how I saw oppressive systems impacting their lives. So I focused on like my observations just through my own internships and professional career.
Terrific. Thanks so much to you both for sharing a little bit of insight into your own journeys and approaches to the application process.
Dan, can I just add, Elizabeth and Dan work really hard on finding a breadth of internship opportunities too that can meet you where you are at on your policy kind of path in the field. And so really knowing that like, whether or not you're a seasoned policy professional or someone that's new to the space, there's going to be really amazing learning for you in the field and people who are dedicated to kind of helping you understand whatever system you're in. So it is a really, it's really incredible to watch what students have been able to do in internship.
Definitely agreed. Thank you, Jenny. And to watch students in the program, their interests, their experiences grow over time also. The students who enter MSP thinking about, statistics or data not being what they wake up in the morning thinking about. And then they get halfway through a semester of statistics and then now wind up working for a research institute at a university where they're a program and data analyst. And so, I think approaching it, knowing where you're coming from and what you're interested in, but then of course, working with myself, the amazing field education office and team, your faculty, your fellow students to, really, grow personally, professionally, academically, and, as you're kind of on the journey, just knowing that there's going to be support every step of the way. There was one more question that I wanted to make sure we could get to if there's nothing else in the chat, specifically about thinking about MSP in relationship to law. And we've had a number of students enter the MSP program, and I think I mentioned earlier, take a class at the law school, both a student who is really interested and passionate about immigration policy and law, and another student who's interested in criminal justice or criminal justice reform and dismantling, and the law. And so, the way that I think about law school, as someone who also once, many years ago, also thought about it, is what specific skills and knowledge you're getting out of the program. I mean, law school will be 3 years in training you to be a lawyer. In the MSP program, in 31 credits in a 1-year program is, training in terms of policy analysis and activism and advocacy, research. So one's not better than the other. They're just two very different experiences. And we see a lot of students who are still thinking, possibly law school long-term that might still be on their horizon, but jumping fully into the pool to build skills through the MSP program, that regardless of their future career path, whether it's a JD or a PhD, over a dozen of our alumni are now in PhD programs, top universities in the US and all over the world. To think about, just how these skills will be a foundation for people to build from in their future professional and academic work, whatever that might look like. Can do one last look for questions.
Dan, there's one more question. It may be for Sarah Dexter. Sorry to jump in here.
Please.
Question in the chat. I noticed only one letter of recommendation is required for the MSP application. Is there a preference for this to be professional or academic as far as the nature of the recommender?
Yeah, I mean, I can take that. I was actually typing a response, so thanks for bringing that up. I think this really goes along with our holistic review process in general for the MSP, the MSW, the MPH. We recognize our applicants come from a variety of areas of experiences, education, academic, professional, volunteer. And so with that, we recognize your recommenders may come from different backgrounds as well. So we don't have a preference whether that recommender be academic or professional. My suggestion is whoever can write you the strongest letter, ask them. We really get folks from all different backgrounds writing those recommendation letters, but I think our biggest recommendation for those letters would be to have someone who knows you really well and who can speak to your abilities to be successful in this work and in your potential in this work. And so that can look like a lot of different folks, but it's typically people who have overseen your work in some capacity. So it can be academic, it can be professional, it can be volunteer, it can be a lot of sort of things. And that's really part of the holistic approach that we take here. So it's maybe a little more information than you needed, but I like to give lots of context. So it's a good question.
Great context. Thanks, Sarah. I'd also just offer, in terms of just not for just the time that we have remaining today, but we are hosting an additional information session upcoming that I wanted to be sure to plug in the chat. So I'll put that link in now. It's a virtual info session we're hosting in partnership with our Global Programs Office. We'll have our MSP graduate student assistant joining us that day. So you'll hear you have the opportunity to hear some additional perspectives to bring the questions that you were really excited to ask as soon as you signed off the webinar and they came into your mind, which happens to all of us. I'll also just put my own email in the chat and encourage people to reach out to me directly if they have any questions about the MSP program, about policy practice, policy research, the program more broadly. So really grateful for everyone's time, and it was great getting to see some familiar faces and names and some new ones as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you all for joining. It looks like it is about that time. So thank you for spending this hour, some folks spending multiple hours with us for this fall preview day. And to all of our future viewers, thank you for your future self. It's such a funny thing that we can record these sessions now, but it's been a pleasure. So thank you all for your time, and we look forward to connecting. Definitely reach out to us. Our admissions is brownschool.wustl.edu. You've seen that email plastered everywhere. I'm sure you've already received emails from us, but I hope you all are staying safe and taking care. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, all.